Board, at this time, what I'd like to do is introduce Senator retired Steve Ogden to come to the podium. He and I had a very nice conversation the other day in my office, and the story, I think your testimony you're about to hear is something that will bring great warmth to your heart, and actually wanted everyone to hear it before you left, Senator. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Doctor. Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Wallace, it's my privilege to be here today, and this is a good story. This is my impression of what the Bryan Independent School District is doing right. And I've got two stories to tell. One is what you did for my son, but also what I observed in the process of watching y'all educate my son. My wife and I have 4 kids. All 4 of them have now graduated from a Bryan High School. 3 of them from Bryan High. The oldest is 39 years old and just made Lieutenant Colonel in the United States Marine Corps. Awesome. He is a... He graduated from Bryan High in 1993, and he's served 2 combat tours in Iraq, and he's been all over the world, and he's doing great. I just saw him this weekend. He's in Quantico, Virginia, with his wife and 2 boys, and he's getting ready to go to 29 Palms. My daughter Stephanie graduated from Bryan High in 1995. She lives on a ranch in Anderson, Texas, which I never thought I'd ever see. She's got 2 boys, and what I'm really proud of is she's one of 2 English teachers in Anderson High School. And my youngest, Kristen, graduated in '97. She went on and graduated from the University of Texas, believe it or not. And she is Director of Publications for the Association of General Contractors in Austin. She lives in Leander and has 2 girls. And so those 3 are doing well. 9 years ago, my wife and I adopted a 9-year-old little boy over in Round Rock, Texas. And I remember the day I first saw him. Here's this little kid standing out in the front yard swinging a baseball bat, wondering what was going to happen to him when his new parents came around the corner. As a lot of kids in foster care had, he has a pretty terrible story to tell. The first 6 years he was in foster care, and he did not come without baggage. But we took him, and we loved him, and have had him for 9 years. This September, he turned 18, and he was enrolled at St. Joseph's. And he did okay the first 9 weeks, but he was always difficult. And private schools exercised a privilege that you do not have. They ask him to leave, and whereas you have to take everybody. And so here I am, Mr. Big State Senator, retired, and the only place that I've got to turn to is the Bryan Independent School District. And I walked over to the school. The first person I met was Lane Boobman, and we had a conversation, and then introduced me to Justin Estes, who's a wonderful counselor. I knew John J.P. Luna because he used to coach Michael when he was in the 6th grade playing football. And I met Mrs. Peer. And you know, Mrs. Peer said something to me that touched a desperate parent's heart, and I'll never forget it. She said, "I think we can help your son. I'm sorry it took you so long to find us." And you know as well as I do, in order for a kid to be successful, that child has to feel wanted. And the Bryan Independent School District made him feel wanted. I was in and out of that school probably 24 times between November and March of this year. And I was always impressed with the school, and I was impressed with this. Children first, always. The Bryan way is not just a slogan. Everybody I met, from the cafeteria workers to the custodians to the superintendents, seemed to embody and embrace that philosophy. I was talking to Mr. Boobin one day, and I said, this place is clean as a whistle. It's cleaner than most hospitals, in my judgment. He says, yeah, I know. It's pretty well maintained, too. And he said, Jerry Ellis taught me that. Jerry Ellis was the principal of my older kids at Bryan High, about keeping a place clean. And he said it's been hard because of the budget cuts, and we've had to cut back. I think he showed me the cafeteria once and told me there was only 2 people that maintained it. But it was clean, and it reminded me of something I learned 40 years ago when I was an ensign in the United States Navy. I was taking a tour in the engine room of a nuclear submarine with a vice admiral. I was the ensign. I was his tour guide. And he looked at me and he said, son, I've never seen a good ship that wasn't also a clean ship. And I've never seen a dirty ship that was a good ship. I never forgot it. But that created a very positive impression in my mind. That place is clean. It's well maintained. It's a place that tells you that people are working hard to provide a good environment for the kids. And I noticed other things about Bryan High when I was in there day in and day out. The adults are really in charge. The place is quiet, orderly. There aren't kids roaming around the halls. They're all in class. You go down to the cafeteria room, they're fine. They're just having a good time, eating lunch, just being kids. And the kids really look good over there. They look happy to me. I watch them every day. You don't see, they just look like kids. They're not thugs. They're not bad-looking kids at all. And I think part of that dress code that y'all has made a difference. They were happy.
Senator, I hate to interrupt you. Can you say that one more time, please?
I think the dress code has made a difference. One of the things that I could never get my 18-year-old to do was put a belt on. He never forgot his belt at Bryan High. And so I was impressed with the school. And the other thing that impressed me was your hack system. I mean, as frustrated as I was with my 18-year-old, because he was difficult, I knew exactly what he was doing. I knew exactly every day. And if I didn't check it on the computer, my telephone would ring. And it would say, oh. Somehow he didn't show up for 5th period, and 6th period, and 7th period. Well, thank you very much. We'll go see about that. But it's a good system. I could stay on top of it. And you know what? When you email the teachers, they email back. And I remember particularly Donna Miller, who was teaching them pre-calculus, and Ray Ann Watson, who was teaching them English. They were really trying to teach them something. They were concerned about them. They emailed me. They told me what was going on. It was excellent. It was excellent. And so what happened to him was that he showed up right before Thanksgiving. He finished out the first semester. He passed all his final exams, and he got credit for a half a semester in all his courses. Things were looking pretty good coming out through Christmas. And one of the things he wanted to do was that the night before he got kicked out of St. Joseph, he scored 20 points on the basketball team, so he thought he could play at Bryan High. And I said, well, it's a little bit different over here. But you know what? Coach Jones welcomed him. Coach Jones is a good man. He says he's a senior. I don't know if he'll ever play or not, but he's welcome to come out here and practice. These kids need to be out here. And I appreciated that. And I appreciated the conversation I had with Coach Jones about some of the kids. I even ended up in the alternative school one day because one of Chaz's friends had a friend that was staying with me for a week. That's another story. And I had to take him to the alternative school. So I was in that school. And when they took his handkerchief away because it was a gang symbol, that was my handkerchief that I'd loaned to him to blow his nose. but they took it away, and you know what? They were running a good ship over there. They really were.
You had
really
to support
were.
that, right?
And
That's why we owe him a handkerchief.
and so we make it through the Christmas holidays, and he's doing pretty good. But he starts as a lot of kids do. He starts hanging around with the wrong crowd, doing stuff he shouldn't have been doing. And he comes in January, and he just basically quits. And I went over to see Coach Powers. And I said, Coach Powers, this kid's pretty good at baseball, really is. The kid, my son already has a scholarship offer. I don't think he's going to take it, but he's got one. I said, Coach Powers, he's pretty good. And I think he could help Bryan High. And he says, well, bring him out. We'll see. And he did. And he did. And Coach Powers put him on the team. And he says, I really care about these kids, and we're going to see if we can make something out of them. Unfortunately, my son quit, but it was no fault of Coach Powers, and I appreciate the fact that he gave him a shot. As we went through the fall semester, it became apparent that he was not going to graduate from Bryan High because he would not turn in his work, and he would not go to class. Sometimes he would disappear for 3 or 4 days. And so I was talking to his doctors, and I was asking them what they might be able to do, and they were being fairly discouraging, and they said, well, what do you think needs to be done? I said, he's got to get out of high school. He has to get out of high school. If he doesn't make it out of high school, he doesn't have a chance. Mm-hmm. And so I talked to Justin Estes, and they told me about MC Harris. And I went over to MC Harris, and I met a wonderful young man named Todd Hopkins. Todd sat me in there. I remember what he said. He says, everybody's got a story. What's yours? And so I told him the story. And one of the interesting things is that the way y'all's rules are set up, Charles Benedict wasn't at risk. I said, if he's not at risk, I'll eat my hat. But he had not flunked a course. He had not been held behind. He was on grade level, da-da-da-da. But he was at risk because he could not and would not function in the normal system. And so we had 2 problems. We had to get him to pass the tax test, and we had to get him out of MC Harris. And Justin Estes and myself and other administrators at Bryan High sat him down. He took the tax test. He passed them, passed all 4 of them. Awesome. And then we had to get him out of MC Harris. And Mr. Morales and Miss Lindsay set him up. He told me, I've got to do 125 apples. And Mr. Morales says, I think we can get him out of here in a month. Well, for the first time in my son's academic career, he showed some initiative and some interest. He finished in 8 days.
Oh, my goodness.
And I went over there and I said, are y'all sure? Are y'all sure? He said, no, really, he did it. And I believe that he's the first member of his biological family that has ever graduated from high school. And he will graduate on June the 6th.
Awesome.
And he has met the requirements for a recommended program in the Texas public school system. And you know what? I don't know what's going to happen in the future. He has some serious issues that we still have not resolved. But I know one thing. He had no chance if he hadn't gotten out of high school. No. And I want to thank the people of the Bryan Independent School District for what they did.
Thank you.
And I want to do more than that. I want to present to the superintendent a check for $10,000 to the Bryan ISD Education Foundation as a small token of my appreciation.
Oh, my God.
I want you to know you can speak to us anytime you want.
Oh, my
Thank
God.
you very
Thank
much.
you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator. And I have to say, we have worked with you for a long time, and if it wasn't for you, those budget cuts would have been much worse. So we appreciate
Yeah,
everything
that's
you've
true.
done for us.
Thank you.